Hey there, welcome to SQSR. Today, we're going to try to answer how big and how heavy is $1 million? Well, the question sounds simple. Let's see how simple we can get for the response. I'll start with the boring answer. It takes no tangible space and it weighs nothing. If you have $1 million US, it's honestly probably just a number in a computer somewhere. But let's look at some more fun options. Now, a lot of things can be traded for money. Rare cards from Magic the Gathering, precious metals, song rights, and labor, for example. We are going to ignore all of those today and just focus on legal tender. Wikipedia identifies 180 world currencies, and I'm sorry, but today we are going to ignore 179 of them. To keep it simple, we are just talking about various forms of the US dollar. The largest bill that's printed in the United States is the $100 bill. Hey, it's all about the Benjamins, baby. To make $1 million out of the good old C-note, you'd need 10,000 of them. Not having a plethora of $100 bills at my disposal, I have accepted the research answer that they weigh in at a gram, although the gram is a unit of mass, not a unit of weight. And after converting them to good old pounds avoirdupois, we find that $1 million weighs in at 22.04 pounds, because it's an even 10 kilograms. A US $100 bill is officially 6.14 inches long, 2.61 inches wide, and a fresh stack of bills supposedly is 4.3 inches per thousand. Some quick math turns that into about 690 cubic inches of money. If we ignore the indivisibility of the bill, that would be a cube 8.83 inches on a side. A more interesting thing, though, is to not ignore the indivisibility of the bill. Various manufacturers of attaché cases agree that the case is 18 inches by 13 inches in the tabletop surface area, with an interior of about 17.4 inches by 12.5. If we orient our bill so that the long dimension of the bill is in the short dimension of the attaché case, we can put two bills side by side pretty snugly. Then we can repeat that for a total of 6 times with about 1.7 inches of leftover space for some, gum or whatever. And by the way, if you're just listening, the picture will make it make a lot more sense. With a surface plan of 12 bills, we would need 833 1/3 bills per stack. 833 times 0.0043 yields 3.6 inches. Some attaché cases claim 4 to 4.5 inches of interior height, so they can clearly hold $1 million. Some go down to about 3, so those don't. Or do they? So if we leave out the gum, we can put some bills in a vertical orientation in the leftover space. 1.7 inches will hold 395 bills. We can then put 2 bundles of that side by side, reducing our main bill stack by 790. Dividing the remaining bills across 12 stacks, we now need 767.5 bills per stack, which is 3.30025 inches. So, unless you get an ultra slim attaché case, it can hold $1 million. What that probably means is that anytime someone is handing over an attaché case full of money in a movie, that's probably supposed to be exactly $1 million. Plus the attaché case, which was anywhere from $50 up through a bit over $5,000 when I was looking. Oh, and I can just imagine it now. Oh, and can I get the case back when you're done? All US paper bills are the same size and weight. So $1 million in 50s weighs 44 pounds, filling 2 attaché cases. With $20 bills, it weighs 110 pounds and is 5 attaché cases, and so on down through the $1 bill. 1 million US paper bills would weigh 2,204 pounds, which is a unit of measure all by itself, known as the long ton, compared to the short ton at 2,000 pounds, which in the US we generally just call a ton. That many bills would ideally make a cube 41 inches on a side. I'll leave it as an exercise to the viewer to come up with the closest workable footprint. Now, 69,000 cubic inches isn't really small, but most adults can see over it. So let's go look at the coins. Most people would say that the next size down is the quarter. Now, when I was in college, the possession of quarters meant that you could do your laundry, so we joked that they were worth their weight in gold. But legally, they're worth $0.25, hence the name, also valued at 25 US cents. A quarter is 0.955 inches in diameter, 0.069 inches tall, and they weigh in at 8 to the pound. It takes 4 million quarters to make $1 million, and so in total, that's 50,000 pounds, or 25 tons. If you made a square arrangement of the coins, they would take up a bit more than 250,000 cubic inches, or an idealized cube just over 63 inches on each side. I'm about 5'7", so in my bare feet, my eyes would be looking directly at the top of that. Neat. And by the way, arranging the coins in a square grid like that does not make for the smallest possible cube. Putting circles into squares turns out to be a hard problem. It's called circle packing. I'm going to talk about it a little bit over on SQSR Raw, but I'll leave it for someone else to cover in detail. Okay, down from a quarter, we have the dime, worth 1/10 of a dollar, or 10 cents. Amazingly, a quarter is worth 2.5 dimes, and it weighs 2.5 dimes. So $1 million of dimes weighs the exact same as $1 million of quarters. Using my lazy grid arrangement of coins, the dimes would take up slightly more space, coming in at a cube just over 64 inches on a side. Next up, or down if you prefer, is the nickel, the 5-cent coin. It is worth 1/2 that of the dime, but weighs more than twice as much. It is also physically larger than the dime in every dimension. 20 million nickels checks in at just over 1 million cubic inches of volume in a grid arrangement. That's a cube around 103 inches on a side. So with nickels, we are finally into the territory of a room completely full of money, though the floor needs to be designed to hold the 220,000 pounds of money. Production may have all but stopped on the penny, worth 1 cent, but it is still legal money. It weighs half a nickel, but is worth only 1/5 as much. So $1 million in pennies comes out to 550,000 pounds. In terms of volume, we're talking 3.3 million cubic inches, or a cube 150 inches on a side. If inches sound too small, that's 12.5 feet. A 40-foot shipping container has about 4 million cubic inches of capacity, so 1 million pennies is about that big, but you can't ship the pennies in that container because they weigh too much. A 40-foot shipping container maxes out at about 58,000 pounds of cargo. But hey, at least it can hold the quarters. So returning to our briefcase of money, can we make the pile smaller while staying in US legal tender? Interestingly, yes. Asterisk. The United States 100 is not the largest bill. From 1928 to 1934, the United States Bureau of Engraving and Printing printed 500, 1,000, 5,000, and $10,000 bills. They are the same size and weight as a modern $100 bill, so at that highest denomination, you only need 100 bills instead of 10,000, meaning that instead of 22 pounds, it's just 0.22 pounds. Of course, you would be silly to use those bills. Since they've been out of print for so long, they're now collector's items, and each one is worth about $500,000 at auction. The highest value legal tender, though, is the United States $100,000 bill. If you had but 10 of them, two things would happen. You would have $1 million that weighed in at just 0.02 pounds. And you would go to jail. Directly to jail. You would not pass go, and you probably wouldn't collect your $1 million. While it says on the bill, "This certificate is legal tender in the amount thereof in payment for all debts and dues, public and private," it also says, "payable to bearer on demand as authorized by law." This bill wasn't a normal Federal Reserve note, but rather a gold certificate. And in 1933, Executive Order 6102 declared it illegal to own more than $100 worth of gold or gold certificates, or a combination thereof. This was followed up in 1934 by the Gold Reserve Act, which, among other things, limited the gold certificates to be used by the Federal Reserve banks to count as gold for maintaining their deposits against the gold standard. Because, yep, in 1933, the United States was still on the gold standard. Since those certificates were never issued again, they are still considered to be owned by the U.S. government. That means that if you have one, it's either counterfeit or stolen. And that leads to one of those, "we don't know exactly what crime y'all committed, but by golly, we know you did something illegal" situations. Well, there you have it. The real answer, that $1 million is just a number in a computer, was very simple. All the rest was still pretty simple, but hopefully fun, particularly that $1 million fits in an attaché case. If you'd like to revisit this topic with different currencies, precious metals, the extremely negative seigniorage coins, or other clever ways of storing $1 million, let me know. See you next time for another simple question and simple response.